Okay, let me ask you something. What if I told you there's an ancient text, a 500-year-old hymn, that's basically acting like a powerful operating system for modern life? Seriously, we're talking about a blueprint for resilience, for focus, for leadership, all hidden in plain sight. So check out this number, 5 billion, with a B. Now you're probably thinking, okay, that's got to be the valuation of some hot new tech startup, right? Nope, that is the mind-blowing number of YouTube views for a single 10-minute devotional song from India. Which brings us to the big question, the one we're going to unpack today. How in the world does a 500-year-old prayer become one of the most watched videos on the entire planet? I mean, it's competing with pop music. The answer is, well, it's not what you'd expect. We're going to see it's this incredible mashup of spirituality, psychology, and, get this, neuroscience. So the source of all this buzz is something called the Hanuman Chalisa. It's a 40-verse hymn, and it's all about a Hindu deity named Hanuman. Now, yeah, it's a religious text on the surface, but if you look a little closer, it's actually a super practical guide for building courage and mental toughness. And the story of how it was written, it's pretty wild. The legend goes like this. The poet, Tulsidas, was actually thrown in prison by the Emperor Akbar. So what does he do? Over 40 days, he writes one verse a day, creating this incredible hymn from his cell. And the best part? The story ends with him being set free. It's like the perfect setup for the Chalisa's core message. Your inner strength can conquer absolutely anything life throws at you. All right, so let's start cracking the code. Let's look inside the verses themselves, because what you find in this old hymn is, believe it or not, a really modern psychological framework. And this right here is where it gets super interesting. You'd think a prayer for strength would start with some big, bold declaration, right? I am powerful, or something like that. But this one, it starts with the complete opposite. It's basically saying, hey, I know my own mind and body have limits. Before asking for any strength or wisdom, the first step is admitting you don't know everything. And you know what that is? It's a perfect example of what today's top performance coaches call radical humility. It's this idea that real growth, real learning, can only start once you're humble enough to say, I don't have all the answers. It's basically a 500-year-old life hack for what we now call a growth mindset. How cool is that? Okay, check out the contrast in this next verse. On one hand, you have Hanuman approaching someone who's been through trauma, and he does it with total gentleness, making himself tiny. But then, when he's up against this massive evil empire, he unleashes awesome, overwhelming force. Two completely different situations, two totally different and perfect responses. What you're seeing here is a masterclass in what modern psychology calls contextual intelligence. It's that amazing ability to read a room, to understand a situation, and to know exactly what it needs. It's knowing when you need to whisper and when you need to roar. And these connections to modern ideas just keep coming. There's a verse that talks about nirantara, which means constant, unbroken repetition as the way to get through tough times. Does that sound familiar? It should. It's the exact same idea behind massive bestsellers like Atomic Habits. It's all about the huge power of small daily habits over big, flashy, occasional efforts. Okay, so we've talked psychology, but now we're going to dive into the really wild part, the neuroscience, because this isn't just about mindset. This ancient practice has a real, measurable effect on your actual brain. So here's how it works, step by step. When you chant, that rhythmic sound creates vibrations in your throat. Those vibrations stimulate something called the vagus nerve. Now think of this nerve as a direct superhighway to your body's relaxation system, the rest and digest mode. So when you activate it, it sends a signal straight to your brain to chill out, and it actually quiets down the parts of your brain that handle anxiety, like the amygdala. And get this, the effects are incredibly specific. A study in the British Medical Journal found that when people recite these ancient mantras, their breathing naturally slows down to about 6 breaths a minute. And that specific number, 6 breaths per minute, is what cardiologists call the sweet spot. It's the optimal frequency for improving your heart health. It's not just random, it's precise. And this isn't just theory, it has powerful real-world results. They did a controlled study with U.S. military veterans dealing with PTSD. One group used a program based on mantra repetition, and the results were wow. Nearly 60% of the veterans in that mantra group no longer met the clinical criteria for PTSD afterward. That's a huge deal. So we've got psychology, we've got neuroscience, but it also doubles as a fantastic blueprint for leadership. Seriously, it describes a model of high performance that the top business gurus of today would immediately recognize. Just look at how the qualities described in the Chalisa line up with today's big leadership ideas. The text talks about having immense power combined with deep personal humility. That is the textbook definition of what Jim Collins calls a level 5 leader. It talks about serving a purpose bigger than yourself. That's the core of servant leadership. And that relentless, passionate perseverance, that's what Angela Duckworth famously calls grit. It's all right there. And if you need one more piece of evidence for how influential this archetype is, here it is. Daniel Goleman, the guy who basically invented the concept of emotional intelligence, he was so inspired by this model of leadership that he literally named his son Hanuman. That tells you everything, doesn't it? Okay, so this is all fascinating stuff, but the big question is, how do we actually use it? How can we turn all this ancient wisdom into a practical, daily operating system for our own lives? Well, let's break it down into 4 simple things you can do. All right, here are 4 practices you can pull straight from the text. First, start your day by cleaning the mirror of your mind. Just a few minutes of quiet reflection. Second, when you're facing a tough problem, don't get stuck waiting for the perfect answer. Just act decisively with what you've got. Third, practice that contextual intelligence. Before you react, just ask yourself, does this moment need a whisper or does it need a roar? And finally, number 4, pick one small, simple practice and do it every single day. Remember, consistency always wins over intensity. So when you pull it all together, you can see why this thing has endured for centuries. It's not just one thing. It's a mental framework, it's a tool to calm your body down, and it's a leadership guide, all wrapped up in one package. It gives you a roadmap for managing your ego while serving something bigger than yourself. And most importantly, it shows us that incredible strength and deep humility, they're not opposites. They're actually 2 sides of the very same coin. And that leaves us with one last really powerful thought to chew on. Maybe, just maybe, the most radical idea in this entire ancient text is this. True strength isn't about getting rid of humility. True strength is humility in its fullest, most courageous expression. Thanks so much for digging into this with me.